Welcome to another deep dive. It looks like you've sent us some really fascinating articles and research all about autism. And we're going to be focusing specifically on how family dynamics can impact autistic individuals.
Yeah, this is such an important area to explore.
It really is.
Family plays such a vital role in everyone's life. But for autistic individuals, those dynamics can be even more complex and nuanced.
Absolutely. We're going to get into some pretty challenging territory today. We're going to be exploring what the Cheap ABA blog identifies as 7 toxic family systems. Have you ever felt like your emotions were dismissed or like your needs weren't fully understood?
It's sadly more common than people realize.
Hmm.
And for autistic individuals who might process and express emotions differently,
Hmm.
those experiences can be even more amplified.
Exactly. So let's unpack these 7 toxic systems. The first one that Cheap ABA highlights is emotional invalidation, like telling someone, you're overreacting, or don't be so sensitive.
Right. And those kinds of responses can really make someone feel like their feelings aren't valid or important, which can be especially damaging for autistic individuals who might already struggle with understanding and expressing their emotions.
Yeah, it can make it really hard to trust your own feelings
Yeah.
and feel comfortable sharing them. Which leads us to the second system, overprotection.
Yeah, this one can be really tricky because it often comes from a place of love and concern. But there's a fine line between being supportive and being overprotective.
Right. It's like that saying, prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child.
Exactly.
We need to help autistic individuals develop the skills and independence they need to navigate the world, not try to shield them from it entirely.
Right. Overprotection can inadvertently reinforce feelings of helplessness or inadequacy. It's about finding that balance between support and empowerment.
So instead of jumping in to solve every problem, maybe ask, how can I help you figure this out?
Exactly. It's about fostering their problem-solving skills and confidence. Now, the third toxic system is one I think we can all relate to, unfortunately. Criticism and blame.
Ugh, yeah, who hasn't felt the sting of that? But for autistic individuals, it can be even more challenging. Cheap ABA really emphasizes the importance of focusing on effort and providing constructive feedback, not just pointing out what's wrong.
Right, and that constant criticism can erode self-esteem and make it harder to learn and grow. It creates this fear of failure, which can be paralyzing.
Okay, so now for a particularly tricky one, emotional manipulation. The research that you provided suggests that autistic individuals might be more vulnerable to manipulation tactics because they might process social cues differently.
It's not about saying that autistic individuals are naive or easily fooled. It's about recognizing that they might need more explicit explanations and support
Yeah.
in navigating complex social situations.
So things like guilt trips or playing the victim might fly under the radar for someone who's neurotypical, but they can be incredibly confusing and upsetting for an autistic individual.
Right, and it's crucial for families to be aware of this and make sure that their interactions are genuine and respectful, not manipulative. Honesty and transparency are key.
Absolutely. And that kind of ties into the fifth system that Cheap ABA discusses, dismissal of needs.
Yeah, and this can manifest in a lot of ways, from downplaying sensory sensitivities to not providing accommodations that would help an autistic individual thrive.
It's about recognizing that autistic individuals might have different needs and that those needs are valid and important. It's not about special treatment. It's about creating an environment where everyone can participate and feel comfortable.
Exactly. It's about equity and understanding. Now, the sixth toxic system is one that I think applies to everyone, not just families with autistic members: lack of boundaries.
Yeah, healthy boundaries are essential for any relationship. What I found interesting is that Cheap ABA emphasizes how a lack of boundaries can lead to burnout and resentment, which ultimately harms everyone involved. Oh.
Oh, it's so true. When boundaries are blurred, it can be difficult to know where one person's needs end and another's begin. This can lead to feelings of being overwhelmed, taken advantage of, or even suffocated.
It's about respecting each other's space needs and limitations. And last but certainly not least, we have the seventh toxic system, gaslighting.
Ooh, this is a serious form of emotional abuse, where someone manipulates another person into doubting their own perceptions and sanity. It can be incredibly damaging and insidious, especially for someone who might already be struggling with social communication or self-doubt.
The Cheap ABA blog gives the example of an autistic person expressing a need, only to be told you're imagining things or that never happened.
Right, it's about eroding someone's trust in their own reality.
Yeah.
Families need to create an environment of honesty and transparency, where everyone feels safe to express themselves without fear of being dismissed or manipulated.
So we've gone through these 7 toxic systems. What stands out to you as the most important takeaway for listeners? who want to create a more supportive environment for autistic individuals and their families.
Hmm. I think the most crucial takeaway is the importance of shifting our perspective. Instead of focusing on what autistic individuals need to change or fix, it's about understanding and adapting to their unique needs and perspectives.
So instead of saying, why can't you just be normal,
Yeah,
we should be asking, what kind of support do you need to thrive?
exactly. It's about creating an environment of acceptance and understanding. It's about recognizing that autistic individuals experience the world differently, and that those differences are valuable, not deficits.
It strikes me that these toxic family systems, while particularly challenging for autistic individuals, could actually be harmful to anyone regardless of neurodiversity.
Oh, absolutely. These dynamics can create unhealthy patterns of communication and interaction that negatively impact everyone in the family. For example, constant criticism can erode anyone's self-esteem, not just an autistic person's.
So working to avoid these toxic patterns benefits the whole family. The Cheap ABA blog talks about the importance of education as a first step towards creating a more supportive environment. What kind of education do you think is most impactful?
I think it's essential for families to educate themselves about autism, not just from a clinical perspective, but from the perspective of autistic individuals themselves. Reading books, watching documentaries, and listening to podcasts created by autistic people can provide valuable insights into their lived experiences.
So it's about moving beyond those stereotypical portrayals of autism and recognizing the diversity within the artistic community. No two autistic people are the same, just like no two neurotypical people are the same.
Exactly. It's about understanding the spectrum and appreciating the unique strengths, challenges, and perspectives that each autistic individual brings to the table.
One thing that really resonated with me from the research that you provided was the importance of self-advocacy for autistic individuals. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Self-advocacy is the ability to understand and effectively communicate one's needs and preferences. For autistic individuals who might have communication differences or social anxiety, this can be particularly challenging. It's about empowering them to speak up for themselves and have a say in decisions that impact their lives.
So how can families support the development of those self-advocacy skills?
Well, it starts by creating a safe and supportive environment where autistic individuals feel comfortable expressing themselves without fear of judgment or criticism. Active listening and validation are key. It's about acknowledging their feelings, even if you don't fully understand them.
It's about saying, I hear you, I see you, and your feelings matter.
Exactly. It's also about providing opportunities for them to practice those self-advocacy skills in real-life situations. This could involve role-playing different scenarios, helping them write a letter or email, or even accompanying them to appointments to advocate for their needs.
So it's about giving them the tools and confidence to navigate a world that isn't always designed for their way of being. The Cheap ABA blog also talks about the concept of internalized ableism, which I think is a really important issue to address. Can you explain what that means and why it's harmful?
Sure. Internalized ableism occurs when autistic individuals internalize the negative societal messages and stereotypes about disability. This can lead to feelings of shame, self-doubt, and a belief that they are somehow less than because of their neurodiversity.
So it's like they're absorbing those harmful messages
Yes.
and turning them inward. That must be so painful and isolating.
It can be incredibly damaging to their self-esteem and mental health. It's crucial for families and society as a whole to challenge those ableist assumptions and stereotypes and create a culture of inclusivity and acceptance, where autistic individuals feel seen, heard, and valued for who they are.
We need to celebrate neurodiversity, not try to erase it. And it sounds like embracing a growth mindset is an important part of that. One of the articles that you shared talked about how a growth mindset can benefit families with autistic individuals. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through hard work, learning, and persistence. It's about embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, rather than viewing them as failures.
So instead of getting stuck in a cycle of self-criticism and negativity, it's about focusing on progress no matter how small. It's about celebrating those small victories and learning from those setbacks.
Exactly. It's about fostering a belief in one's own potential and empowering autistic individuals to persevere through difficulties. And this benefits the entire family, not just the autistic members. When everyone embraces a growth mindset, it creates a culture of resilience and continuous learning.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've uncovered some really thought-provoking ideas about how family dynamics can impact autistic individuals.
Yeah, it's clear that these 7 toxic family systems can create real challenges. But the good news is that by understanding these patterns, families can start to shift their interactions and create a more supportive environment.
Exactly. And one thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis on open communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Communication is key in any relationship, but it's especially crucial in families with autistic members.
It's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to express their needs and feelings.
Right, and that includes active listening and validation, making sure that autistic individuals feel heard and understood, even if their communication style is different.
I also found the concept of reframing to be really powerful.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. So instead of viewing autistic traits as deficits or problems, we can reframe them as differences that bring unique strengths and perspectives to the table.
I love that. It's about shifting our mindset from a place of judgment to a place of curiosity and appreciation.
Right.
And when we approach neurodiversity with that kind of open-mindedness, we could start to see the incredible value that autistic individuals bring to our families and communities.
One of the articles you shared talked about the importance of celebrating autistic joy.
Yes, that's such an important point. Too often the focus is on the challenges and struggles associated with autism, but it's equally important to acknowledge and celebrate the moments of joy and connection.
It's about recognizing the full spectrum of human experience.
Right. And for families, that means creating opportunities for autistic individuals to engage in activities that bring them happiness and fulfillment.
Whether that's through special interests, hobbies, or spending time with loved ones.
Exactly. It's about fostering an environment where autistic joy can flourish.
And that brings us to the idea of creating a sensory-friendly home environment.
Oh, that's essential for many autistic individuals who might be highly sensitive to certain sights, sounds, smells, or textures.
The Cheat ABA blog offers some really practical tips for making simple adjustments, like dimming lights using noise-canceling headphones or creating designated quiet spaces.
Those small changes can make a huge difference in reducing sensory overload and creating a more calming and comfortable atmosphere.
And it's not just about the physical environment, it's about the emotional environment as well.
Absolutely. Creating a home where autistic individuals feel safe, loved, and accepted is paramount.
It's about fostering a sense of belonging and connection.
Exactly. And that starts with understanding and valuing their unique perspectives and experiences.
We've talked a lot about the challenges and strategies for creating a more supportive environment. But I think it's also important to acknowledge the strengths and talents that autistic individuals bring to their families.
Absolutely. Autistic individuals often possess unique abilities and perspectives that can enrich the lives of those around them.
Like heightened attention to detail, strong problem-solving skills, or a deep passion for specific interests.
Right. And it's important for families to recognize and nurture these strengths, not just focus on areas where they might need support.
So it's about finding that balance between providing support and celebrating their individuality.
Exactly. It's about embracing the full spectrum of who they are.
One of the articles you shared talked about the concept of neurodiversity affirmation. Can you explain what that means and why it's important?
Sure. Neurodiversity affirmation is the idea that neurological differences like autism are natural variations in the human brain and should be respected and valued rather than viewed as deficits or disorders.
So it's about moving away from that medical model of disability and embracing a more social model that recognizes the barriers and stigma that society creates for people with disabilities.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from trying to fix or cure autism to
Yeah.
creating a world that is more inclusive and accepting of neurodiversity.
A world where everyone can thrive and reach their full potential.
Absolutely. And that requires a fundamental change in attitudes and beliefs,
Hmm.
both within families and in society as a whole.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by the incredible resilience and strength of autistic individuals and their families.
It's truly inspiring to see how they navigate the challenges they face and advocate for themselves and their loved ones.
And it's a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more inclusive and equitable world for everyone.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for having me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure discussing these important topics with you.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us. We hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights and resources to support autistic individuals and their families.
Remember, creating a more supportive and accepting world for neurodiversity benefits everyone. It enriches our communities, expands our understanding of the human experience, and ultimately makes us all better human beings.